Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and operator of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you want to call in your hand, check out the phone number in the description. What's the level of the game?
1-3.
Okay, 1-3. What's the
It's
buy-in?
a 300 cat, but 400 effective.
Okay, 300 cap, 400 effective. Okay.
Yeah. So the main villain was an older guy in the small blind. Obviously seems competent, but pretty passive, pretty tight. Um, Nothing too. Haven't seen anything notable from him so far. Just haven't been playing a lot of hands and stuff
Okay.
like that. So let's see. There's a +1 limp. I'm +2 with Ace of Spades, Queen of Diamonds. I race 18. Villain and small blind and the limper both call. Limper's like a real spot, so not too concerned about him. Just an older guy that has money that he likes to splash around. So
So three ways, right? You got Ace of Spades, Queen of Diamonds. You raised to 18 over limper, the small blind, and limper call. Okay.
yep. So flop's about 50. I think it's 53 after the rake.
Okay.
Flop comes Ace of Hearts, Nine of Hearts, Seven of Spades.
Okay.
So a small blind checks, +1 bets 15. And I like to raise here to 45. You know, the I think the +1 guy here, he's betting out with all of his aces. This is pretty standard for him.
Right, and you probably
he
probably have him beat all the time, right? Because you would tend to
yeah, just
check
about
raise his
like
other hands.
95% of the
Right,
time,
right.
he's bet calling here with everything. So I like to raise to 45,
Okay.
pretty standard value
Yep.
value there.
Yep.
And then so something concerning these small blind flats,
Okay.
and then the +1 folds.
Okay.
So +1 obviously didn't have an ace. He'd be bet calling there. So
He might have had like a nine
uh,
or some shit that he was trying to find out where he's at,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 8-9 with a heart. Just anything.
Right.
So yeah. So small blind flats. +1 fold. So the pot's about 150 now. The turn is an 8 of spades. So, kind of a coordinated card here. And the small blind leads out for 75.
So you have the ace.
Um,
I just want to go over the suits real quick for the people listening on the podcast. Ace of Spades, Queen of Diamonds. You have Ace of Hearts, Nine of Hearts, Seven of Spades. Bet 15, raise 45, small blind flats. Turns the Eight of Spades. You have the Ace of Spades. Backdoor Spades are out there.
I do. I do have
Right.
the ace of spades.
And small blind leads for 75.
Right. And so, given the past action, since I've seen him at the table, this just, I do have ace queen here. But, I just kind of get sick to my stomach here. I feel like I'm being taken to Value Town with this guy. He would play one pair.
Cautiously, you think?
Yeah. I think he'd play pretty cautiously here, especially given my raise on the previous street.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? So he could have like, you know, well, Jack 10, which would have been like a flush draw, a straight draw, but he'd have to be like leading here with the nuts, with the uber nuts, right? That's
Right.
pretty much I mean, I guess he could have like 5-6 of hearts as well, or he could have been slow playing, obviously the flop in the sense of like a set of sevens, set of nines. He doesn't want it, another card to come off, or it's possible he might have turned like ace eight. I'm just thinking of the value hands that obviously, you know, that beat you. I mean, it seems pretty nitty to fold here. You are getting a price, and normally my default is going to be I'm going to call. You know what I mean? I understand that it's a raise and a
Right.
cold call. I mean, it's 225 to 235.75 for you to call. And you do have some equity against some two pair, although if he does have aces up, if he turned ace eight, like, you can catch a nine or you can catch a queen. But I mean, it's hard for me just to fold. You would have to know the guy really well to just dump the hand
Yeah,
right
no,
now.
I mean, folding never crossed my mind here, especially against this player pool, you know.
Hmm.
But
So you called.
um, yeah, I did call, and small detail, you know, like uh, it was obvious some of the players were in this game specifically for the guy to my right, you know, the
Uh,
+1 guy.
yeah,
So, you know, trying to keep him in the pot was, you know, kind of a main objective here. So
sure.
I think that could have been a possibility as to why I didn't hear from him on the flop. But so, anyways, um, yeah. So small blind bet 75. I
Hmm.
call,
Yep.
um, and so river pos about 300 is the 4 of clubs,
Okay.
and the small blind bets leads out for 175.
I would probably fold now.
Yeah,
I would
and
probably fold now because you have shown like an amazing amount of. So when you look at, and listen, I mean, obviously you're sort of towards the top of your range, but you do have some better hands here that you might raise the flop with, like ace nine, ace seven sets, right?
right, right,
You're probably not raising the flop with ace eight necessarily, but yeah, you do have sevens, nines, pocket aces, things like that. If you
right,
raised a
right,
combo draw like Jack, Jack ten of hearts, something like that. But you raise the flop, this guy cold calls, and you sort of identify him as an idiot. Now he leads for 170. So he's led the turn. He played a stop and go of a cold call, and now leading the river. I mean, look, what are the hands that he would ever be sort of betting in between here, that you beat? I just don't see him
right.
doing
I
that with
mean,
like ace
nothing.
jack or ace 10. You know what I mean?
Right, and you know, this guy, um, you know, what went through my head immediately after the hand was, you know, this guy, uh, you know, saw me call down extremely light, you know, 3 hands previously, and you know, given given the context, I like he's just never bluffing here, um, and you know, so you know, I end up calling.
Okay. Oh, you did. So you did call.
I did call.
So why did you call if
Uh,
you didn't think he was ever bluffing?
well, that those were my thoughts after the hand.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, no, I mean, you know, at the table, I was just, um, you know, I was just, it was more of a frustration call, I guess.
Hmm.
It'd been a long night, but yeah, so I ended up calling and, um, you know, obviously throwing up in my mouth a little bit, but yeah, he rolls over ace nine of clubs.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, here's the thing to sort of take away from this, and obviously I didn't know the result, but I'm telling you the way that I would have played it is a call on turn and then fold river. Um, there's always going to be a frequency of somebody slow playing, especially when you raise, because the thing is that when it goes bet and you raise, like if that guy throws in like a check raise three bet, you're probably just releasing like all of your hands, right? Like you might even
Right,
like release like ace seven to some guys. That's how strong the play is. So some of these nitty guys sort
right,
of recognize that they have to play almost like in an accidental balanced way, because if they breathe on the pot, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna blow somebody out. But his line is sort of consistent with a strong but non-nut hand. So that's why it wouldn't have
right,
surprised me if he had turned over like five, six of hearts, which needs, in his eyes, a little bit of protection, right? Because there's going to start to be
right,
one-liners out there, or like ace nine, top two. You know, if he had bottom two or if he had ace seven, he might have played it differently, either cautiously or putting in the extra bet because he didn't want to get the bad beat. But ace nine and sets and stuff like that were sort of strong enough for him to slow play. But then once the nuts start to, have a legitimate shot at changing easily, right, with a three straight out there on the turn and two flush draws, well, now he's not going to check. Now, my question to you is that if he had checked the river, what would you have done? So if he bets 175, you call, and now he checks the river, like on the four of clubs, like what would you have done?
I mean, I would have to check back. I mean, I don't know. Um,
I mean, would it have been
but
any different than with ace king if you had ace king?
I mean, it, I'm not sure.
I mean, I think it's pretty close, right? Because he plays a stop and go against
Yeah,
your raise and cold call. And if I had like ace king or I mean, ace king's easier, right? Because you're gonna beat because
yeah,
some of these guys will just call with ace king too,
right. And
you
I
know.
just don't see enough people in this player pool uh, face a raise, a raise on the flop,
Yeah.
flat it, and then lead out with one pair. I just don't see that a ton. Um,
Right. I just think that, this is another spot where it's pretty thin if it got checked to you at the end, sort of like the last caller when I said for him to shove. I'm
right,
not saying
right.
shove, but I think I would value bet ace king. I think that ace queen might be right around the threshold. But I think if you had ace king and it got checked to me, I would put in a value bet because a guy could be stopping going with like ace queen and ace jack. And I don't expect him to do a whole lot of checking with two pair. And most of his two pair is going to be aces up that's played this way. And again, because I feel like bottom two at 9-7 isn't necessarily. I mean, I guess occasionally you might value own yourself against 9-7, but
Hmm.
this is evidence that he's going to bet aces up on the river. So if he checks the river and he doesn't have aces up and he doesn't have the nuts and you have ace king, there are more hands that you have that beat him. And it doesn't seem like he's going to fold unless you go like crazy large. So, these are really the thin spots that you have to navigate in these cap games. And like I said, I've played a fair amount of these cap games, doing my challenge. Now I'm at the 100-hour mark. So, um, I think it's interesting, but I think that you definitely rightly recognize that when somebody cold calls your raise on the flop and then goes lead, you can make the fold on the river when nothing changes just based upon the fact that the guy has bet again. It's changed enough for the hand. Okay?
Right. And whenever uh, one of my leaks is, whenever I get frustrated, there's kind of a, like a tilting hand, five hands before. Whenever I get into that spot, one of my leaks is just playing my hand strength and not, uh, you know, paying attention to other players' ranges and their actions
Well, and
and
then
those
also
types of
too,
things.
you have to recognize that other players actually might be savvy enough to recognize, like, if you're having a losing session, that they're not going to try to bluff you because you're not folding, right? When you raise flop and then call the
Right.
guy's donk on the turn, it's somewhat suicidal to try to bluff a guy off of an ace when he might be having a bad session, and his MO when he's having a bad session is to call down too much. So, anyways, thanks for the call,
Right.
man. I
Right.
appreciate it. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out crushlivepoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA200. Click on the link right there.